Welcome to this week's edition of Oregon Minute. Each week, OCA Media features a guest or community leader who shares information on topics important to you, our listeners and viewers. New weekly episodes are broadcast on our cable channels as well as on demand through our YouTube channel. Visit ocamedia.com for more information.
The Oregon Minute is brought to you with financial support from friends of OCA Media and viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to another episode of the Oregon Minute. I'm your host, Tom Kirschdoerfer. This week, I'm joined by someone who's very familiar to those who watch the Oregon School District meetings, Oregon School District Business Manager, Andy Weiland. Andy, welcome to the Oregon Minute.
Thank you, Tom. Glad to be here.
Yeah. You know, Andy, everybody who's been to school or been around schools, they pretty much know the superintendent, they know teachers, they know, but what does a business manager do, and what are your responsibilities, especially in the Oregon School District?
You bet, Tom. Yeah, it's a question I get a lot, and I'm kind of the behind the scenes guy for the most part, unless we're talking about a referendum or something. But I'm kind of responsible to keep kind of things running and support principals and teachers and staff members throughout the school. So I work a lot with budgeting. I work a lot with the buildings, work with different types of insurance policies that we have in the school district, work on safety issues. And then some of the other things are called auxiliary services. So that means transportation, food services, those types of things as well are kind of all under my responsibility as far as how that works. So I like to tell people that anything that costs money, I'm probably involved in some way or another.
Yeah. So how long have you been doing that, Andy?
In Oregon, I've been here actually since 1999. So I think that would make this maybe my 23rd year.
Wow.
I was an assistant superintendent for administrative services back in DeKalb, Illinois for about 6 or 7 years. And then a small district a little bit west of there, closer to Chicago for about a year.
Oh, wow. So in those years, I mean, that's quite a span of time. What have you noticed as far as changes in your tenure?
In Oregon, it's interesting. Thought about this question a little bit over time. I think the community has wanted more services and those types of things as the community's kind of changed. When I got here back in '99, kind of what we were okay with, quite honestly, was just at a different level than where we are now. There's a lot more expectations, and rightfully so, of the schools and the community as a whole. And so that's kind of an interesting thing that's happened over time. And we've had to continue to be flexible and respond to those different changes that have happened.
Wow. So you mentioned, you have a responsibility in relationship to buildings and some of the different facilities of the school district. I saw recently here there was an award that was given to on the Forest Edge School. Can you tell us about that award a little bit?
You bet. Yeah. So Dane County gives away these climate awards, climate champion awards. And actually we got an award last year, but for building Forest Edge, which is a net zero school. And I'll talk about that in a second. This year we got the next version of the award because basically we proved out the concept of the building. And the concept of a net zero school or zero energy building, sometimes the US Department of Energy calls it that, is basically that the building over in a year period of time will make as much energy as it uses. So Forest Edge actually was able to accomplish that at the beginning of, or at the end of August of 2001. And we were able to get that verified by the New Building Institute that has a database on net zero buildings. And we are actually, this is kind of interesting, we are the largest verified educational facility in North America. So we're at over 126,000 square feet in that building with lots of beautiful spaces, lots of natural light. And there are some other buildings in that category that are what's called emerging, which just means they haven't verified it out. But there's the larger ones are typically colleges, large campuses, those types of things. So we really kind of strived for a significant impact, and we're able to accomplish that. So very, very proud of that, that our community allowed us to build that facility, that our Board of Education saw the vision of wanting to do that facility. And it's been awesome. If you talk to kids these days, this is the type of thing that they're really, really interested in. And they understand the challenges of climate change and what we need to do to kind of change things up a little bit. So the building's got a lot of really cool technology in it, but the main two technologies that make it work and made it net zero for the most part are geothermal. So that's where we're using water in the earth to heat and cool the building, depending on what time of year it is. And then basically photovoltaic solar. So if you were to look at the top of the building, it is solar panels from one side to the other. And the building's actually even designed so it doesn't shade the panels. If you look at the front of the building, it's lower than the back of the building because the front of the building is on the south side of the building. So it all is designed that way. And we were actually exceeded the amount of energy that the building needed last year by about, I think, 26 megawatts of energy. So the building as a whole needed about 750, 760 megawatts of energy over the course of a year. And we made over that. So that's a huge accomplishment. The other thing that's unique about the building, you can tell I like talking about it, is that it's fully electric. There is no, we're not burning any fossil fuels in the facility at all, except for, unfortunately, the snow blower right now. Other than that, everything is electric. The stove tops in the kitchen are electric. The ovens are obviously electric. Hot water heaters are electric. Everything is electric. We even have electric lawnmowers. So we don't want to have to convert the calculation for what natural gas energy is into anything. It's super easy to figure out that this building is net zero, because all you have to do basically is add a bunch of numbers together, 12 numbers on the utility bill that show how much energy we used, 12 numbers that show how much energy we sold to the utility. And if the sold number is larger than the used number, then we're net zero or better. And that's
so the excess power goes back into the grid and
Yep. We make a lot more power kind of in the summer than we use. The building's not used much in the summer except for the office and some, the gymnasium occasionally, that type of thing. So these months that we're in right now, we're using a lot more energy than we make, partially because we don't have the sun as long. We're all looking forward to a little bit more sun, I think, but also because the snow tends to cloud over our panels when it snows, and so we lose those days that they're covered in snow. But today I'm actually happy to report that at least a little while ago, when I was looking at the building's production, we were actually making more energy than we were using. So that's a good day in January for us.
Yeah. Well, it's a good bright day today. So you in some of our conversations and getting ready and over the years, you mentioned you had a connection to sustainability. Can you share that with us?
Yeah. I like kind of sharing this little story. Maybe it's interesting to people. It's interesting to me, I guess. When I was a high schooler, actually, yeah, it was about high school, I think. My father, who's a fairly creative folks, I'm very proud of both my parents, but my dad decided that we were gonna kind of get into the solar game. And this was I think it was in the Carter administration when we had solar panels. You could get a tax credit for putting them in. So he put 6 panels. They were passive solar, so not the photovoltaics that we have today, but basically heating up water. And he used those to put onto our house kind of a hot water heating system. We didn't have air conditioning like many people back then, but we had this hot water heating system, and it was an awesome system. He created it himself, but he basically had an exchange tank that he used. So he brought solar water from the outside, and then he heated up this tank of water, and then that water had another coil in it that would basically heat the home. So Obviously, like I just said, in the winter, you don't get as much solar as you'd like. So there was also a wood burner connected to that. And the wood burner was in the downstairs, and that's where my bedroom was. So my responsibility was to basically keep the house warm. And I had to stoke the fire, so to speak, at night, or otherwise we got up in the morning and everybody was cold. And there was quite a bit of accountability associated with that, let's say. So that was my responsibility. But what really was cool is I would go in there, and he had all these pressure gauges and temperature gauges and relays that he basically had created. He was an electrician, or is an electrician by trade. And just seeing how that technology worked and being able to watch it and being able to tweak it and make it do what I needed to was just a really cool feeling.
So one of the other things you mentioned as you were going through in your list of many responsibilities was the budget. And obviously the school district has a pretty complex budget. Can you describe some of the process or steps you go through in preparing a budget each year?
Sure. So revenue in a school district is derived, over 85% of the revenue is derived by the number of students we have. So that's how the state formula in Wisconsin works, is that we're completely driven by the number of students. So I like to tell people, my mom's a real estate agent, and she would say that the key to real estate is location, location, location. I like to tell people the key to school finance is students, 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 because that's how it works. So we do projections every year, trying to figure out how many more students we're going to have in each subsequent year. And that kind of is a driver or a target for us to look at how we can live within those means. And then we basically take and we identify staffing costs. The majority of our costs in school district is staffing related. And those are the costs that also change the most, depending on if we're adding staff or if we're looking at increases in health insurance or raises and that type of thing. So kind of basically, as we go through the year, starting typically about this time of year for next year, we are projecting those students. We're trying to figure out how that works. And then we're looking at our costs and where our costs are, and then trying to marry those two up so that they're as close to equal as possible. Mm-hmm. That's the simplest way to share that. There's a lot of different components to it, but for most people, they get a feel for it right there.
So are there specific challenges related to, just being a school district in Wisconsin? I mean, what's the issues there?
Yeah, for many school districts in Wisconsin, they're not quite as fortunate as us. A lot of school districts in Wisconsin are actually losing students. So that puts a huge pressure on them because proportionally their funding is based on how many students they have. So like in any business, you have certain fixed costs, you have utility bills, and you have certain staffing positions, such as myself, that are going to be there regardless of how many students you have. And so if you're losing proportionally a portion of those costs when you lose students, then that really puts a lot of pressure on the budget for people. So that's one of the things. Oregon has been growing, or recently we've been just kind of stable lately with our enrollment numbers. And that causes a problem when, for instance, the state budget is a little bit difficult for us. We are getting barely any additional funding, no per student increases in our funding formula for this year and next year. And so that creates a lot of difficulties for us. We do have some one-time revenues that we're getting from the federal government, which are fairly significant, but without being able to rely on those revenues for the future, we're struggling with how to deal with that. Sure. And I was looking for some information. We've actually been talking about this as a group of business managers and school officials throughout the state. And an interesting piece of information has come up pretty recently. I'm going to refer to a piece of paper here so I get the numbers right. But sure. When I came to Wisconsin, it was definitely considered one of the best pro-education states in the United States. I was in Illinois at the time, and I remember fondly thinking about coming to Wisconsin. I'm originally from Baraboo. My wife's from Sauk, so we wanted to come home. We had just had our our second child, Jack, and wanted to come closer to home, the grandparents and everything. We wanted to move back, but I also knew the great basically recognition or favorable education quality and funding that was in Wisconsin. So that drew me here. And in 2002, so there's some numbers a couple years after we got here, 2002, Wisconsin per pupil spending was ranked 12th highest in the United States, or 11% above the national average. If we fast forward to 2019, Wisconsin's pure pupil spending ranked 25th in the country, and 4.5% below the national average. So I'm told that we're the only state in the entire country that has had such a precipitous fall in that number. And I can tell you that we've felt that as a community of school officials in the state, and it's concerning, quite honestly. We have been fortunate in Oregon to grow a little bit, as much as we can, or as much as we've reacted to that, as well as we've had a lot of success in getting people to help figure out how we can fund schools through things such as referendums. So that's helped us a lot, but it's kind of concerning from a public school concern that things haven't been really great from a state support perspective.
It's an interesting perspective to add to it. When everybody has always been sort of proud of our schools in Wisconsin, and the thought that we might be slipping or maybe not supporting it as much as we used to is kind of alarming. So something people should think about.
Absolutely. The concern is, again, from a perspective where Oregon and our community has cared for us and helped us deal with those challenges that have been there. But there's a lot of communities out in the state of Wisconsin that have not had that. And that creates kind of an inequity also that we need to be conscious of and aware of.
Yeah, and that's kind of just the element of the formula that's been put forward. And I certainly have heard more about districts where they have a declining enrollment, and they are really, really struggling.
I think the percentage is in the high 70s as far as the number of school districts that are declining in enrollment in the state. So again, in Oregon, we are incredibly fortunate.
So kind of just shifting back to you, Andy, I've known you I don't know how well I've known you. I remember playing basketball with you on Sunday nights over at Rome Corners. So that has to go back at least quite a ways. What other things interest you? What keeps you busy when you're not balancing numbers or paying bills for the school district?
You bet. Well, I have enjoyed and appreciated the ability to serve the community in a couple different ways. I've been a longtime Rotarian. I think that was probably the first thing that I joined when I got back into Oregon. I think it's been probably 22 years. I think it was my second year that they nominated me president. So that was a kind of trial by fire a little bit, but a great group of people, a great club. Does a lot of awesome things for the community with Learner Park and scholarships, and have enjoyed selling brats at the Brat Fest at Summerfest, which hopefully will be back again this year. And then other things I like to do is I've been fortunate enough to be asked to be part of the cable access channel too. So I've been on the board with you, Tom, now for probably, 6-7 years, something of that nature, I'm guessing.
Yeah, well, it can't be much lower. I don't think I've only been on the board about 6 or 7 years. So, you probably got. I think actually you got on it just about the same time I did. Now that I think about it, but yeah.
Yeah. So I've really enjoyed that. I enjoy playing basketball, as you said. I will tell you that my knees and my hips are not enjoying that as much as I do. So I've recently taken up pickleball at the urging of our community ed director, Amy Miller. And I love that. My wife and I have been doing that. We did it actually last night, Sunday night, at the high school. And what an awesome sport that is, and great people again to do a little competition, but also just socialize with folks. So that's been a lot of fun. And then I enjoy kind of the solitude of biking as well. So been road biking now for probably about 5 years. during the pandemic when people were kind of encouraged to be by themselves. I think I did like 2,300 miles.
Wow.
Wasn't able to do that last year, but it's a good way to kind of burn off some calories and be with nature a little bit.
Well, I enjoy the biking too. I haven't seen you out on the trails, but we'll have to connect up and go out this sometime. We certainly enjoy we have some beautiful trails around the area, so there's a lot of opportunities.
The Purcell Trail into UW is awesome, and it's like exactly 10 miles. So
that wraps up pretty much all the questions I had prepared. Andy, is there a message you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Just continue to support public schools. We are kind of an important fabric of our country, I believe. And it's something that I believe strongly in, that it allows us to basically mix people of all kinds of backgrounds, all kinds of skill sets into an organization that is all about learning and all about students and all about the well-being of the community. So just appreciate all the support that the community has shown me and the Oregon School District over the years. And please continue to think about that as the future comes on.
Thanks, Andy. I know the community really appreciates what you do, and you hear a lot of good things about the school district. I know you're an important part of that. It sounds like you have a pretty busy schedule, so I really appreciate the time you've taken today to visit with us, and hope to be talking to you again really soon.
All right. Thanks a lot, Tom.
Okay. That wraps up another episode of the Oregon Minute. If you have comments or suggestions, we'd love to hear from you. Just contact us at ocamedia.com. You're watching OCA Media, your Oregon Community Access Station.